I'm in a very literary mood right now. I kind of want to talk about The Lost Generation with you. Hopefully you don't mind, though. I mean, why would you mind? We're all pretty much drunk here. I even brought a couple of books with me. Yeah, I know. Who's the sourpuss who brings books to a speakeasy? But I love my literature, and I love my alcohol, so what's the best place in order to drink alcohol while reading literature? You can't very much drink alcohol in a library, and I can't either. Let alone find a proper library where you can find anything really, but hopefully they expand and get better in the future. Soon future, very close future. Anyways. I wonder what year this is. I hope it's not. No. Anyways. I'll just leave that there. Now, give me one moment. Well, I think the only book that can really, encapsulate the times at the moment is none other than The Great Gatsby. I admire Jordan Baker. She's probably she's a great gal. That's all I can say for her, is that she's a great gal. But I do admire Mr. Fitzgerald's writing in this story because he's just so poignant when it comes to really capturing the essence of the times. I mean, pretty much everyone from the Lost Generation is quite apt when it comes to explaining what's going on right now, but with, the frivolous lifestyle matched with a sort of hollow despair. I think, in my fair prediction, I believe that that's going to be a pattern for a lot of generations to come, not just the Lost Generation. There's always going to be this recycling of when in peaceful times, after having gone through so much stress and violence, that no one's going to be truly at ease within that peace, and they're going to just simply take advantage of the times to be more, fun and out there and to party and whatnot, which reminds me, I gotta take another drink. Prohibition makes drinking much more fun, although also much more difficult. And I feel like, going back to my point, I feel like it's going to be this recycling where, people, when in reality, it's kind of, they're not at ease with themselves, they're not at ease with the times, they know that something bad might happen, down the line. Despite the fact they still go out and try and party and have all this much fun just to compensate for the fact that there might be a time when they're not going to be able to do that anymore. But within that environment of partying, they often forget, deeper meanings and whatnot, and they often just lose their heads and they lose their minds. Either that, or just in pretty much any situation where people just are vacuous and they just want to have fun and not think deeply about matters, which makes them feel hollow when they do think about matters, which in turn makes them want to not think about the matters anymore. It's really a cycle, if that makes any sense. I sometimes wish I was a member of the Lost Generation. That way I can make more sense with my points and, get to write novels and make art that, or, even dance that, dance the expressions that I'm trying to express out into a more tangible, I guess, sort of realm. I mean, just look at Isadora Duncan. I mean, that woman is just, as a dancer, I've never seen anyone like her. Now, going back to Mr. Fitzgerald and his book, The Great Gatsby. I absolutely adore this novel. I could probably read it every day of my life if I could read a book entire day. I mean, I can, but it's just it takes up so much of my time. So it's like I have other things to do, things that are of import. But despite that fact, I still love it. I would read it once every week. I think that would be a more manageable expectation. I mean, the way it was written is phenomenal. But going back to the last, you don't know what The Lost Generation is? Excellent. Let me just take a drink. I'll explain it to you. This wine is particularly poignant. Kind of like, tastes like juice. Juice with olive, or olive juice. Olive liquid, I don't know. Tastes like juice with olives in it. Or just juice. Perhaps. Yes, just juice. Perhaps. Maybe. I wonder why it would taste like juice. Anyways. The Lost Generation. The Lost Generation is basically that conglomerate of people that are artists, to best label them all as, that come together usually underneath the guidance of Gertrude Stein and create art. I mean, there's notable examples of F. Scott Fitzgerald, as I already mentioned. Zelda Fitzgerald is sometimes added into it, but frankly, it's kind of well known that Zelda is more of a dynamic personality, to say the least, and that she's just writing for the sake of keeping a name along with her husband's name, rather trying to claim a more famous and notable name alongside her husband, who has already made a reputation of himself as a writer. I believe that a lot of people have a problem with her, though, considering her issue with alcohol, which reminds me. Yeah, Zelda has quite a problem with alcohol, though. I mean, the woman doesn't know when to stop. I wonder if that'll get into trouble someday. Hopefully not. Hopefully her life gets fired up and she can live it to the best of her ability. Now, other than the Fitzgeralds, or rather just F. Scott, I'd like to consider, well, I mean, Zelda tried, and she was still noted, so, and I mean, her personality was an artwork in itself, so, who cares, but, let me think, those two, Ernest Hemingway, of course. I want to say no. I mean, all of the surrealist artists could be considered part of the Lost Generation, considering how the definition for it is people who've come of age during the time of World War I. But as I already said, it's I'm not exactly sure whether that specifies that they've come of age in the sense that they matured during the World War I, or if their artwork came of age. For example, there's some examples that they were born during the 70s of the 1800s, and obviously they didn't come of age during World War I. They were already in their 20s or 30s during World War I, and so I don't know, maybe it is artwork, but I like to consider coming of age during World War I because there's something a little more touching about that. Anyways, the Fitzgerald's, Hemingway, I guess Picasso, since he's such an influential figure right now, along with Dali and Magritte, or Rene Magritte, something like that. I can't pronounce. I learned these names on my own, so I sometimes mispronounce them as a result. John Steinbeck is starting out. Who else? Isadora Duncan, as I already mentioned. Henry Miller, William Faulkner. Who else? T.S. Eliot, James Joyce, Aldous Huxley. I sounded incredibly British right there. But yeah, these are all members of the last generation, and frankly, the way they're characterized in the literature is that basically because they lived through World War I at the very least, or came of age during World War I, which, as I already stated, creates more touching feel with their work. It gives off their artwork a sense of Dostoevsky-esque sort of qualities, where it's like they're very conflicted in the sense that they combine frivolity of life that's going on right now with just inner disturbance, inner despair, rather not despair, but inner disillusionment. That's the best word, disillusionment towards their situations. Just like the Great Gatsby, as I already said. I mean, Tom and Daisy, they're the best to explain how frivolous people can be. I mean, their child wasn't even mentioned in the story, for God's sakes, barely, in order to push through the idea of how, not even their children make it to the realm of responsibilities. All they care for is the next party and how they're perceived within society. But Hemingway's writing also follows that tangent. However, I am a big fan of Hemingway because of his writing style itself, his prose. It's very to the point and very concrete, and I quite enjoy that sort of dynamic. Not to mention Hemingway's actually a very handsome man. Like, if I could ever get the opportunity to meet Hemingway, it'd probably be his, seventh wife. Very handsome young man. I mean, just my goodness. And then his partnership with Gertrude Stein is quite adorable, in my opinion, because she's a good 20 years older than him, but they kind of lean on each other, and that's, I don't know, there's something quite amiable about that. Anyways, Gertrude Stein is basically, she is in herself an artist as well, but she's most famous for collecting artwork and helping others as being a patron to their artwork as well. And she also is quite admirable as well, because during these times, as you know, despite the fact that flappers are around and alcohol is permissible, or rather not permissible, but the alcoholic culture is permissible, considering how it's so much fun. Despite those facts, we still live within a very rigid society, and despite that, she still is very out there with her lifestyle. Rather, not even just her lifestyle, it's the way she is. So she's very out there with that, and that's quite brave considering the situations that we're in right now. But I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe she's in some sort of political office as well. I mean, you can't correct me if I'm wrong, because you don't even know who the last generation was. But I believe she took on a political power as well. Anyways, I believe she was also born in 1970, or rather not 1977. We haven't gotten to that year yet. She was born in 1877. F. Scott Fitzgerald, his wife, Ernest Hemingway, who else? T.S. Eliot, I believe, maybe. Who else? I believe John Steinbeck as well. All of them are people who were born during the 1890s or 1900s, but early 1900s. Salvador Dali was another one born during the 1900s. Picasso was born during the 70s as well, I believe, but I can't quite recall. So these are all people that grew up, became adolescents during World War I, and Ernest Hemingway himself actually fought during World War I, being scarred quite psychologically speaking, quite harshly, just like every other soldier basically. And as a result, their perspective on the world and the way they choose to write it has that mark of, once more, frivolity meeting Disillusionment, and I think that's why I like them a lot. I just wonder how they will contrast with the children born of the 1990s and early 2000s. It'd be interesting to see the comparison. I wonder if another world will break out during the 1990s or early 2000s, or some sort of like grave attack or something that kind of marks how the children of those times will see their world in contrast, in comparison to the kids of the 1890s with World War One. However, no. I mean, World War One was supposedly stated to say that it was going to end all wars, but obviously we still have conflicts. So, it didn't end anything. But once more, going back to my tangent, it would be interesting to see that comparison. I probably won't live long enough to see that, though. I mean, 70 years from now. That's a long time to wait. Anyways. What was I going? Oh yeah, the comparison. It would be interesting to see that, though. To see how people of the 1890s contrast with kids of the 1990s, or people of the 1900s, early 1900s, contrast with people of the early 2000s. And that would be made even more interesting if the children of those times are faced with, disillusionment in themselves as well. That would be quite interesting. I don't know, hopefully I might get to see it. Just so that I can make the notes and try and be like, oh, compare and contrast these two cultures. There's only a little bit of this left. Shame. Once I'm done with my drink, I'm probably gonna leave. Anyways, going back to this book, The Great Gatsby. I don't know about you, as I already stated, but I just adored Jordan Baker. She was probably my favorite character in this book. I think it was just her, she was a character that lived within frivolity, but I believe that she had more of a depth to her than just, living in it like Tom and Daisy, where they went about it in a way that it made them fit the culture. Jordan Baker did it more in the way that it fit her personality. Or rather, that Tom and Daisy fit the culture while the culture fit Daisy's personality, or rather, Jordan's personality. And that's what I liked her for. Not to mention the fact that she also wasn't tied down with a child or a marriage or anything like that. So she was free to do whatever she wanted, unlike Tom and Daisy, who had other responsibilities to take care of. And Nick Carraway, of course, but Nick kind of seemed a little more to the hopeless note rather than, a more realistic one. And then Gatsby, but Gatsby kind of got on my nerves towards the end, because, just let her go. Let her go. My goodness. He was smitten with Daisy, but she was married, she had a child, she was gone, she didn't care for him, she never cared for him, and he was still there. Anyways, that's my review. I liked Jordan Baker. Tom and Daisy were, irresponsible, to say the least. Nick Carraway was a little too hopeless for my taste, and, Gatsby really needed to get a hold of reality. Plus, I love The Lost Generation, and you should really check them out. I would really go to your local library or something, or read a newspaper. I'm sure they're all over it. Anyways, I finished my drink, and now I'm going to leave.